Have you ever realized that when you force something, it never really goes your way? When you can't force a friendship, you can't force a relationship. When you force something, it never really goes your way. What is forced is never favored. What is forced is never favored. I think back to my last job, and the reason why I started this message off with that, because I thought about this and it really spoke to me. Um, I had an opportunity to start over. I had an opportunity to go to a completely different position, a completely different job. I knew at the time that God was closing one door and opening another for me. And I decided to stick my foot in that door before it closed. Before it closed, the door that God was closing for me, I wanted to stay in there, in it. I didn't want it to close because I started doubting myself. I started doubting my skill set. I know the value that I can bring, but doubt slowly began to take me out of the excitement of going into a new place, going into a new environment. I was thinking like, oh man, I'm going to be the focal point. It's going to be me. I'm going to set up the systems. I've never done that before. This is going to be something new for me. I'd rather have what I was doing for the past 9 months. I'd rather do what I was doing because it's familiar. I'd rather do the familiar thing than the new thing. I'd rather keep the door open, the one that God was closing, instead of going into the door that God was opening. And that was the worst mistake that I could have made, because I began to realize why the door was closing. I've never gotten anxiety before in my life. I've never had anxiety before in my life. And working with the boss that I had, it was horrible. It got to a point where I knew I had to leave. I knew I had to leave because it was conflicting with my mental health. And I've never been in that situation before. And this is after I end up staying. I began to feel bitter. I began to feel irritated all the time. I was upset because I had to be at this place. Then I began to feel upset because I didn't take the new job, the new opportunity. I didn't take it. I left it sitting there because I knew the familiar was going to be better for me. That's what I felt. But I was wrong. I was wrong. If you ever find yourself in a position like that, trust yourself, man. Trust yourself and trust God. This is when your faith picks up, because you have to have faith in God to know that you are going to be able to do the things you don't even know that are coming. I didn't know what this new job was going to entail. All I know was I was going to be the main contact. I was going to have to start the system. It was going to be me hiring people. And I'm like, man, I've never done that before. But God was like, you know what? You can do it because I'm giving this to you. I had the job in my hand, and I decided not to take it. Has that ever happened to any one of you? That you had something but you talked yourself out of it because you got nervous, or because you felt like you weren't really qualified, or whatever reason you may have. But you end up going back to the familiar. When God closes one door, don't try to open it up. Don't try to reopen the door. Leave it closed. It's closed for a reason. It's closed for a reason. And I found out the hard way. Why? Because what's truly yours does not require force. Bishop T.D. Jakes. That's what I was listening to this morning. And he said, what's truly yours does not require force. And that said to me that if you have something and you know it was sent from God, you have to put your trust in it, you have to put your faith in it. But at the same time, you don't have to force it, because it's going to flow. It's going to flow into your life. You're going to be trained well. You're going to work with amazing people. You're going to have an amazing boss. What's truly yours does not require force. I know in another time of my life, I was working on, I had to work on myself, because sometimes God has you in a place, because he wants you to change. He wants something about you to change. So you're in this place, wanting to move, needing to move, anticipating the move, but you're not going anywhere. You're stuck. It's because God wants you there. He wants you to find something out about yourself. He wants you to change something about yourself. And to find that out, you have to talk to him. You have to talk to him, because he's going to lead you to what it is. When I was at Tyson and I sat there at my desk and I wanted to leave this job, but I knew I couldn't because I didn't have another one. This was before I moved to Las Vegas. This was in Omaha. So I knew I couldn't leave. My grandfather always told me, boy, don't you quit no job without having another one. I can always hear that in the back of my mind, always. So I knew I outgrew the job. I knew there was nothing else for me to do. I knew there was no room for me to grow. And I was just stuck. And I was like waiting to go. And it began to affect my work. I didn't want to put in the work that I was putting in. I let things go. I made multiple mistakes. I almost was trying to get myself fired, to be honest. But it came to a point where I figured out, like, I have to put my all into this job. No matter how much I hate it, no matter how much I dislike being here, I still have to put my all into it. Because God has tested me on how much I still show up when things aren't going my way. How much are you going to show up? Are you going to show up 100%, or are you going to get 50%, or even less than that? And that was my test. And I looked at it and I said, you know what? I'm going to put my all into this job. Even though I don't want to be here, I'm going to continue to apply somewhere else, but I'm going to put my all. And at the end of the day, I end up getting another position somewhere, a prominent job, with making a lot more money, and the people were amazing. It was just, I was able to grow. I was able to learn and do all kind of things, that I didn't think I was going to do at Tyson. But at the same time, I had to make those changes. And I did that. So I'm encouraging you all that if you find yourself stagnant, if you find yourself stuck, there's a reason why. There's a reason why. Go to God. Ask Him to help you figure this out. Open your eyes. Because the change is needed. You got this. We got this because He got us. Stay encouraged, y'all.